Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. For 20 years, the leader in security systems here in East Tennessee. They do great work. They also do terrific home entertainment stuff as well. But in terms of just securing your home, cameras on the outside, that kind of thing, they do great work. Quick install, top-of-the-line equipment. Call my friend VFL JJ Surlis about security systems right now. Safety Systems. All right. There are no on-campus or off-campus visits, as I mentioned, at the moment. Didn't stop Tennessee from getting a couple of commitments this week. Pretty good. And by the way, the NCAA has now extended that no campus thing through the end of May. So it was April 15th, and now they've pushed it to the end of May. We'll get to that in a second. But Ryan, you cover recruiting for GoVols 24/7. Tell us about a couple of these guys. First up, wide receiver Walker Merrill.
Yeah, a longtime in-state target, a guy they offered about a year ago now and have been after him for that long. T. Martin's been in heavy contact with him over the past several months, so people were kind of wondering, is this guy high on Tennessee's board? Well, turned out he was, and a good athlete. A guy with a 39-inch vertical last year at a camp that he attended in Middle Tennessee. So really impressive athlete. I think it could be a slot receiver or an outside guy. Solid speed, plays really fast. Reminds me a little bit of Josh Smith and Zach Rogers. Those guys who similar skill sets. I think not identical, but that's kind of what he reminds me of on film. Just I think a guy who's going to be a good program player and could end up being a starter someday.
You just mentioned something. Josh was talking about recruiting and how it's going to be different in between segments. Camp. He just did this at a camp. Be interesting to see if you have these camps. If you move the football schedule, where do the camps go, or do they just go away? When do you do camps? Yet another layer.
I think the short-term answer is definitely not anytime soon, because they're mostly held at high schools or colleges, which are not going to allow large groups of kids on their campus for legal reasons, obviously. Yeah. So I think that's the short-term answer is that stuff's not going to happen.
It's just amazing. Just how many hoops you have to jump through. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about the other kid who committed this week from North Carolina. We have Jaylen Wright.
Yeah, the first sign of sort of Jay Graham's fingerprints on the running back room. His first running back commitment since he rejoined Tennessee staff and
from his home state.
Yeah, and I was gonna say a guy who maybe kind of reminds him of himself a little bit. A running back from North Carolina with track speed. This is the guy who ran a 10.84 100 meters. That's a pretty solid time, and has a frame big enough that he could get a little bigger too. So I think he's going to end up in the probably 200 to 210 pound range, but. Wants to run track at Tennessee in addition to playing football. He's under the radar right now. This is the kind of guy, no spring evaluation period is the other part of that calendar change you mentioned. So coaches can't go out and see guys like this on the road. I think the feeling with Tennessee staff is he might have blown up a little bit this spring and gotten more attention. Now that he can't have the opportunity, Tennessee maybe gets a guy on board early. He mentioned this coronavirus stuff being a part of his decision to go ahead and commit this early. It maybe helped Tennessee in this case. They can keep a guy like this under the radar for a little longer.
And another interesting point, how is that thing going to impact people's decision? We were talking off air about kids staying closer to home at Maryland. Mm-hmm. Tennessee was really after. Are there kids that want to stay closer to home? Are there kids who want to just get this over with? Who knows how this impacts all of that? I'm sure that's driving coaches crazy. Just another variable to throw in a crazy game anyway, which is recruiting.
Absolutely.
So, let me show you the current 24/7 recruiting rankings. Here are your national rankings. Florida number 4. Then you go to Tennessee 13, Georgia 16. Not a lot of SEC teams killing it right now. Tennessee, though, 9 commitments.
Yeah, an unusually strong start for them in terms of total commitments. A handful of those, 5 or 6, came even before this calendar year started, so they've gotten off to a good start. Alabama has 1 commitment right now. This is the opposite of what we usually see. Tennessee often has to wait until the late spring or summer to start really getting close to double digits in commitments. So this is, I think, an example of what having some staff continuity can do. It's year 3 under Jeremy Pruitt. You're starting to see some of the results of that, where they've had guys committed before this year, or they've got relationships with guys long enough they can start getting these early commitments.
Any concerns about the fact that you got 9 commitments and you're only 13th?
Well, one thing worth noting, that is based on our 24/7 Sports composite rankings. One of Tennessee's commitments currently is not rated in that, so that sort of drags down that rating a little bit, the fact that he currently has no rating. But you can't really say too much about that right now, just because, again, ratings, a guy like Jaylen Wright, he's under the radar right now. He could end up being a 4-star by signing day. We just don't know. So much of this is unknown at this time of the year. And I'd rather be in Tennessee's situation, frankly, than a lot of schools with 1 or 2 commitments right now. This is not a year for uncertainty. You may not have summer camps this year to even go on a run and get a bunch of commitments in the summer. So we don't know what what's going to play out. And this is one of those things you want to have some certainty in your class. So Tennessee's in a good position, I think.
The teams with the best talent evaluators are going to do well right now because you got to figure the guys who aren't great at it. Like this would be a terrible, terrible year for Butch Jones, who would just be going by star rankings. You know, I mean, seriously. Whereas you hope that Pruitt has a better eye for talent. You know that a Nick Saban does. I don't know about Lane Kiffin. You know, I go back to when he was at Tennessee, and you think, yeah, Bryce Brown, David Oku. Do these guys that have a leg up on the evaluation standing have a leg up when when these guys finally wind up on campus? And I would think they would this year.
I will say this year, whenever things do open up, if that happens later this year, late summer, fall, it could be wild. You may have guys who are committed, schools, again, second-guessing their evaluations early on because they see guys play for the first time in a year, decide he's not really cut out for us. You may see a lot of movement late this year. A lot of people are already wondering if there will even be an early signing period. That's something at least on the table. Does that get wiped out and maybe everyone just signs in February like they used to?
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee's second session of summer school starts July 6th. I would be surprised if they actually have that. So if you're not having campus visits until fall, I can't see them doing an early signing period.
It's tough, and guys haven't even started their official visits. You got to do all that in the fall. A lot has to happen.
Last note on those rankings, ahead of Tennessee was Rutgers. Who's coaching Rutgers now? What's that guy's name?
You don't want to go down.
Shiano? Interesting. Interesting. All right.
North Carolina also number 3. They're off to a hot start with Mac Brown. That affects Tennessee. That's a state. It's hard to get into there with Mac Brown recruiting the way he is right now.
All right. Very good. Let me go ahead and tell you about another one of our clients right now. Express Frame, closed temporarily. That's part of the governor's order. They are not considered essential. But here's what you can do. You can go check them out at expressframe.net. You can pay attention to this show because I'm going to tell you when they are reopened, and they're going to have grand opening prices and specials and deals when they reopen. So when they come back, they're coming back with terrific deals like it's a whole grand opening, which I think is a smart deal. I bet you a lot of companies are going to follow their lead on that. Express Frame. All right, when we come back, the NCAA is going ahead as we expected. They're going to give spring athletes another year of eligibility. We'll talk to Josh Ward about the pluses and minuses of that. And then a little later in our show, VFL Mike Stoll. We do a good news segment where it's either something silly or something with positive news. VFL Mike Stoll is in the medical sales business, specifically ventilators. He's going to join us from his home, and we'll have an interesting little conversation with him. So come on back on the Sports Source.